Hello. I'm very excited to share the information I'm going to share in this video about what we call the moment of shock. Feelings of moments of shock that we've had, they're really dominant over our consciousness. They make us always resist something we're terrified of, basically a feeling, and the fear that it will completely engulf us. These moments of shock, they exert a lot of force. And we exert a lot of force trying to fight back or push back on the feelings that shock leaves us with. And I just love every time a new observation arises. I get so excited at some new discovery that further gives understanding to the mind and the spirit and human nature. And every one of these things feels like such a wonderful breakthrough in advance for me, doing the work that I do. And for a long time, I've evolved a really, really great and effective technique to help a person to thoroughly process and resolve their moments of shock. But yet there's always more to learn about the mind, the spirit, and human nature. And maybe the biggest mistake a person could make is to think that they've got it all figured out and there's nothing important that's not already known. Big mistake. And fortunately, I don't have that attitude, and it actually makes me very happy anytime something comes along that causes me to change or dispense with a principle or belief that I'd had up until that point. That's growth. That's a wonderful thing. And with the technique that I've been using for resolving shock, to begin with, it came from an earlier work by someone else by the name of Alan Walter. And Alan was, in my opinion, a brilliant guy, but he was somewhat compromised, tainted, in my opinion, by his Scientology experience. He contributed quite a bit to the techniques and principles that they use in Scientology, which I don't endorse for good reasons. But it's not like everything in it is completely of no value. But to jump into that system, particularly with the organization, that's a bigger mistake than I'm going to take the time to elaborate on, because that's not the point here today. So moving on. Alan had some brilliant insights of his own, particularly once he was no longer connected with those people. And he developed the original procedure, which sort of provide the skeletal basis for what I changed, evolved, fleshed out to be what I use in my shock resolving procedure. And one of maybe the biggest change and breakthrough that I brought to this myself was the recognition that 95% of what we need to digest, what we need to process, is our own resistance to things we don't want to have to feel. And those resistances can take the form of ways of being, of false senses of self that we take on or have impressed on us. What I call resolutely held protective attitudes. The word protective being in parentheses. Not parentheses, I'm sorry, quote marks. In other words, resolutely held protective attitudes, because they're not protective at all. They actually hold in place the things we're pushing back on, as all resistance does. And something else which we can call commands or insistent, forceful attitudes that we self-install to try to get away from that which we are most in terror of in our feelings. This all has a lot of relevance in the shock handling in particular. When I added this step to allow yourself to, while being completely relaxed and effortless, allow all those feelings of all the effort of resisting, of pushing back on fears we don't want to fear, and the feelings of shock in particular, to let all that resistive energy, all that effort just relax and release through us, and the anxiety within that is the emotional character of that resistance, all that effort to push back down, and just let all that energy and that effort that's been in place, that's been expended, to just release through our being. Let it all go, let it all process, that pushback itself. And then what's left to actually process is relatively anticlimactic after that. It's our resistance, our fear of being engulfed by feelings of fear, that projection of it being something as so much more overwhelming, that is the greatest hurdle to clear, the greatest obstacle, and is easily processed this way. But the point I want to make in this video that I'm really excited about is there's something else that is many times why our moments of shock, they stay with us. And it's because we have attitudes or insistent demands within ourselves to actually hold on to the shock. Why? Well, a couple of reasons why that have popped up recently, or that I've noticed within the person. For one thing, when we lose somebody we love, shockingly, we can decide that all we have left to hold on to is that time, that moment of shock of losing them, that if we let that go, we'll lose our connection and our feeling of the presence of that person, if we don't maintain the shock that we felt in losing them. And of course, that's not correct. That's not true. That just holds in place horrible feelings of shock. So sometimes with that, I noticed that just telepathically, you could say, in a session with a client in the past few weeks. And I noticed that happening, and spotting that or feeling that, I did then naturally ask the question to bring it out in them. Is there some thought, idea, or belief or demand you have within yourself to not be without that feeling of shock, that particular shock, to hold on to it? And yeah, that came up, and that happened to be what it was. Okay. And another reason people come up with that becomes a demand or attitude to hold their shock in place is the idea that as long as they hold it very present in their consciousness, that will keep them on alert, so they can't be surprised and shocked by something else, because of that state of alertness, of keeping that shock present. And they feel the idea that that's going to protect them from being caught off guard by some other or similar shocking moment. And that, of course, also is unnecessary, unhelpful, and holds in place a very undesirable way of being. But these need to be brought out and processed to very efficiently resolve those horrible feelings of shock that have stayed with us from shocking experiences. And there can be any number of other reasons people come up with. But if you want to fully handle that in a person, if you're the one giving the sessions, then you want to be able to sense, detect, or ask for any attitude or insistent demand that the person has within them to hold on to that shock. I discovered this through doing the regular steps of the shock resolving procedure, and noticing more deeply than I have in the past, because as I continue, I become more intuitive, and my feeling the other person's feelings and thoughts, telepathy, for lack of a better term for the moment, the more I've noticed that sometimes the answer a person gives to one of these questions that are designed to help them fully accept the shock into their consciousness and thereby process it. Sometimes the way they answer a question is subtle avoidance to process what the question invites them to process. And that avoidance, or that subtle resistance, is the evidence that they've got something in them that says not to let go of it. I caught that, and the more I work with people, the more I feel what they're feeling, get their feelings and thoughts, and new observations emerge. And so for all of my trainees, people I am training, people I have trained, take note of this, that when a moment of shock comes up for your client in a session, be sort of present and sensitive to that possibility, or any of that feeling or energy or expression coming through. That there's, if they're not just readily resolving the shock with each step, if something comes up as an answer that feels like a little bit of avoidance in the answer, like there are questions in doing the shock handling procedure that have the person finding, noticing, and recognizing the exact moment when the shock occurred for them, and the exact spot, the exact location, the place where it happened, and looking at different aspects of the shock to identify and quantify and so forth. And so, for instance, this question asks, how big does the shock feel like it is now? If the person is readily processing, the answer is not going to be absolute and infinite. It's going to be some quantifiable size that it feels like it is. And now I'm aware, I'm noticing that on those occasions when a client gives an answer like it's everything, okay, that is actually something in them saying, don't reveal this, don't accept this into consciousness, don't process that, don't lose it, just keep it there. That's what that's showing when I get that kind of answer. That's revealed itself to me now, and now that's very exciting, because now we can process that much more efficiently and that much more deeply in helping anybody thoroughly resolve their moments of shock, to make sure that we have the person process fully and resolve any of their thoughts, ideas, beliefs, attitudes, or insistent demands that their feelings of shock need to be held in place. Makes a huge difference, and it's very exciting to recognize that little bit of human nature. I mean, I think that it's fairly common to observe, have, or understand that somebody holds on to something. It could be objects or going places or anything, because they feel it's a way of holding on to someone that they've lost. But you wouldn't necessarily connect that with holding on to the terrible, shocking feeling of the moment when they lost that person or became aware of the loss as something that would be healthy to hold on to. But you can understand the feeling that the person has, that this is all they've got to hold on to of the person. But that's not really true, because as beings, as spiritual beings and as people, we remain present with each other, even after we've died, so to speak, physically. And it's very easy to help anyone to recognize and have the presence of their loved ones, gone or otherwise, gone, so to speak. Okay? That's very simple and easy. I can simply invite a person or suggest for anybody to just notice and have and feel the presence of their loved one there. I've done this many times with people close to me who lost someone in discussion. Just recognize they are most certainly here right now with you. If you will allow yourself to, just let yourself feel their presence. And in that moment, it's always done. It's an accomplishment. It's like the person actually recognizes that their loved one really is right here with them. So it's really not necessary to hold on to the shocking part. That's just something to resolve and process. And now we know more about how to do that and the mechanics of why that shock is persisting up until we address it. So I find that pretty exciting, and I hope you do too. I hope you find that as exciting and as enlightening as I do. And you can use that information not only if you're one of my trainees, helping people to process what they need to process, but knowing that information, you can apply that and recognize maybe you don't need to hold on to what you're holding on to so much when it only makes you feel sad or afraid, and you can pass that along to other people to help them to feel better. And of course, you can always direct them to me, and I'll be very happy to thoroughly help them get all the way through and beyond it. Thank you for watching and listening. You can reach me through my website, dexsessions.com, DEXSESSIONS.com. You could even just Google my name, find me that way. So enjoy.